Welcome, everyone, to tonight's presentation, The 4 Secrets to Deep Read People. We're excited you're here. I'm Joel Mark Witt, here with Antonia Dodge from Personality Hacker. As we get started, I love to find out where people are coming from all over the world, because we usually have people from all over the world. In fact, I always say this, I really wish we had somebody from Antarctica. And just at our last profile training a couple weeks ago, we had a volunteer join on Zoom from the substation in Antarctica to be profiled by one of our profilers. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she turned her screen around and showed me that she was like in a snowy field in the middle of nowhere. I was so excited because we've had people join from every single continent now.
Yeah, we won the bingo set.
As of last week.
As of that profiling session, we won the bingo set.
Yeah.
Because we've been waiting, we're waiting for the Antarctica person. We South America was one of the last ones in our set. And then we got South America, and then now we have Antarctica.
So Jacksonville, Florida, Cincinnati, Ohio. Hello, is that a place or is that a person?
Australia.
Oh, Australia. Denver, Sydney, Australia, Pennsylvania. We've got Arizona, Charlottesville, Cambridge, Massachusetts, Westchester County, New York, currently in New York, Chicago, Australia, more Australia, California. It's really got to be early in Australia. Norway, fantastic. Hello from Norway, British Columbia, Canada, Quebec. I hope you guys are doing good up there after fires. Vancouver again, Mississippi, Detroit, Michigan, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Cleveland, Ohio, Omaha, Nebraska. Oh, this is fantastic. All right, people from all over. Keep typing in where you're coming from. I'd love to hear which part of the world you are in.
I think it's super early in Australia. I think that's usually
what it is.
Yeah. Is it really early in the morning for those of you in Australia?
I think it is.
Let me know.
California, London. We have 2 Cleveland, Ohio's. Wow. All right. New York. This is good stuff. Sydney, it's 8:30 a.m. That's not that bad.
Oh, that's not as early.
That's like a decent getting up in the morning time. Thank you for being with us on this session. So tonight, again, we want to talk about the 4 secrets to deep reading people. And we've got a lot to cover. So I might get breathless as I move quickly. Antonia will slow me down to stay content focused so we can get through all the content we get through tonight.
But then he'll speed me up.
But then I'll be speeding up again, keeping time and all that. So let's go ahead and share your slides and jump right into this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Clearly, we're doing this because we are in the middle of our enrollment period for our profiler training program. It's our flagship program here at Personality Hacker, 6-month program. It culminates in a 5-day live immersion event to help you calibrate and master the skill of being a personality profiler. We've been teaching this since, was it 2010? I think like 12 years, a lot of years.
2010 was our very first class.
Yeah, I don't know how long we've been done, a long time. And we've developed a methodology to take somebody and help them understand the art and science of having a conversation with another person and helping them determine their best fit type. All the way back to the roots of the Myers-Briggs system that Carl Jung talked about, a psyche-to-psyche experience. And we're really excited about this program because every year we keep dialing in more and more. The community keeps growing. The program keeps getting better. And new students keep joining. And we'd love for you to join this program. I think it would be an amazing program for you, especially if you've been listening to our podcast or been around the Personality Hacker community for a while. I think you'd benefit greatly from this. And I think it would be really up your alley if this is the stuff that you're into. So we want to talk about this tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the secrets to deep reading people. We're going to give you some things that you can take away from this presentation, no matter if you join or not, but obviously it will help you if you join as well. So we're going to go through some of that right now tonight.
Well, and of course, in order to help you make a good decision, because it's an investment of energy, time, attention, we're doing a preview tonight. So we're inviting you to come join us, but we want to make sure it's a good choice for everybody. So we're going to be doing a preview. And that said, there are some of you that know you want to join right now. In fact, it is not uncommon for people to have effectively been waiting for 6 months, 5-6 months for this to for registration to open. So congratulations, registration is officially open. If you know you want to register, if you're one of the people I'm talking about, you can right now head to profilertraining.com/apply and just begin your registration right this very second, because I know some of you have been waiting for it.
It sounds like one of those, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. That's right. But we get emails or like, when is it opening? And we say, come to the Tuesday night. The webinar is the official time of registration opening. And so you're good to go. Head over.
Yeah.
All right. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the ideal conditions for somebody to become a profiler.
And deep read people.
And to be able to deep read people and make a real difference in their lives. All right. So we'll talk a little bit more about what it means to deep read, but what are the conditions a person needs in order to be able to do this? Well, the first condition is that you have to turn knowledge into skill through deliberate practice. So it's not just understanding a theory. It's not just taking in information. It's actually practicing what you're learning. And profiler training is really, really, really invested into elbows deep practice. That means that you have a specific plan for what you want to practice, how to practice. You have benchmarks, milestones that you're aiming for. You have a schedule to follow. These are all the things that are required in order to become good at basically any skill. The second condition is that you have to receive credible feedback from qualified people who know what they're talking about, because without the right feedback from the right people, there's no way for you to know, to calibrate, to know for sure that you're on the right track of improvement. And the third condition is a community that helps you stay accountable. Community, it doesn't just keep you motivated, but it also helps you stay inspired, right? You're surrounded by like-minded people who are all trying to do this together. And when you weave in that deliberate practice, that feedback, and the community piece, those are the conditions to become good at really any skill. And profiling is no exception.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to talk about what it means to go to a live event. But we have people right now who just came back from a live event, who have been through profiler training and some of the advanced courses.
Yeah.
And we want to get a little bit of feedback from them about what the experience is like before we head into what it really means to deep read people.
One of the reasons why I've asked, so if you all would just turn on your camera, I think we have like 5 people here. One of the reasons I've asked these folks to come is they just had the experience of being at the profiler training event. But I also wanted you to see people. You, as you're watching this, I want you to see people and the type of people that are attracted to this, because it's very important that we curate this community intentionally and we like attracts like. And so I've asked a cross section of some of our students and some of the alumni to come and talk about some of their experiences so that we can basically have the right people attracted to this experience of profiler training. So I've got Melissa, Ari, Tom, Jen, and Klaus. Everybody here went to the live event just 2 weeks ago, except for Klaus. He's in Germany. He didn't come to the live event, but he also has been working with us for like, what, million years or something like that, Klaus. He's been working with us for a long time. He's one of our in-house profilers. He works here on the team with us. I invited him to come because he's been here for a while. And so some people are brand new. They just came through profiler training, and some people have been here for a long time. In fact, they work with us on the team. And I thought it'd be a good cross-section. So let me just start real quick here. Why don't I start? I'm just going to let the Zoom gods decide this really quick. And I don't have a ton of time to spend on this. I'll kind of keep good time because I want to get to some of the content about deep reading people in a moment and some of the other things we want to share. Let me slow my energy down just for a moment. Hi, Melissa. Why don't we start with you? Melissa, what is your best fit type? Where are you at in the world right now?
Hi, I'm Melissa. My best fit type is INFJ, and I live in Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. Fantastic. Paint us a picture. What is profiler training like from your perspective as an INFJ from Richmond, Virginia?
Other than amazing, wow. It's really hard to summarize what profiler training is like because there's just so much. When I joined, my initial reason for joining was really the information, because I'm low-key obsessed with MBTI and personality and everything else. And so, and in starting the course, that's what I got, like the material, so deep, so fascinating, the monthly calls, all of that. But I was really surprised with, I mean, you were kind of kidding earlier, but the value added, but wait, there's more. There's just always more. And so once you've done the class, you have access to those monthly calls indefinitely. You have access to the summit. And then there's a live event, which, talk about value added, incredible, super busy days around people with like minds, super fascinating. And then on top of that, there was the bonus day that was super. I'm sure Ari and I will be discussing this in a minute, with brain scans and all sorts of other stuff to geek out about. So when I first signed up for profiler training, I remember that I was like, I just don't know if this is going to live up to what I have in my mind. Like, I had painted my NI picture of what it could be, and I was like, it's not gonna be that. But it blew it away. Like, it was even better. And how often does that happen?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, no pressure on us now. Thank you. I gotta keep delivering. Thank you for that. Actually, great experience. I probably will come back to you and put a pin in you for a moment because I want to hear from some other people briefly. Thank you for expressing that. I do want to go to the other INFJ here, Jen. And I'm doing this for a specific reason. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
I just blew the type. You're going to tell us what you are. And your name, I guess. But Jen, INFJ, where are you from, Jen? I'll at least ask you that.
That's all right. I'm from Cobourg, Ontario, Canada. And
Canadian.
Yeah, it's a little ways away, but so I joined years ago. So I'm in the November 2019 class originally, and then COVID, et cetera, et cetera. But I became obsessive pretty quickly. You guys hooked me on pretty quick and joined the profiler training. Honestly, like Melissa, I just wanted to deep dive. Like, I just wanted to know more. I wasn't sure I wanted to profile. I didn't know if that was even going to be in my future, what that would look like. And it was actually a stepping stone for me to get into therapy. So I'm right now training to be a psychotherapist, master in psychology. Wow. And so this was a really great stepping stone for that. And it's opened up so many doors in that way. Is like, I guess it instilled a lot of self-confidence in me. In our live calls every month was really nice to be able to share that. So that was a value add that I wasn't anticipating. Yeah. And yeah, it just like, I've been bit by the bug, and you can't get unbit, I guess.
Yeah. The reason I mentioned I was going to go to you as a second INFJ is because supposedly, I mean, the stats are that INFJs are very few and far between as the least represented type. In my world, that is not the case. It's the inverse of that. I would say there's a ton of INFJs in my world. Not only is my mom an INFJ and Antonia's, but in our community, there's tons of you people. And so I just wanted to highlight the fact that it's people that I think are often misunderstood, or have, they kind of are the weirdos, the misfits in life that are obsessed with this kind of stuff, end up coming into this ecosystem. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I would argue that it's beneficial to be around like minds like that. And you're absolutely.
Yeah, a breath of fresh air, honestly. And to be able to meet other INFJs in person this last May, it was fascinating to get like a cross section, because I don't have any other INFJs in my life. I have a lot of ENFPs as it stands. Yeah, it is. It's actually very good for me. But ultimately, meeting other INFJs like Melissa was really fascinating to see how other people of the same type show up, right? And that differentiation helps with profiling. It helps with understanding yourself. Like, I really enjoyed that element of it too, and other types, of course.
Okay, thank you for that. I might come back to you in a moment here. I want to go to Tom. Tom, what is your best fit type?
Hello, Joel and Antonia. My best fit type is an INTP, and I'm coming to you live from Locust Grove, Virginia. Just back from the live event in Pittsburgh. What an awesome experience that was.
Great.
And for me, the journey started when my life I've spent decoding complex computer systems and architectures, but simple conversations with people were sometimes a bit challenging. And I decided, well, there must be a framework, something I can use to better communicate with people. And I'm listening to these things on nonviolent communications and just digging in all over the place. And all of a sudden, Joel and Antonia come on YouTube, and they're describing INTPs, and they're completing my thoughts before I can even finish thinking them. So I found my connection. I found my understanding to a framework. And I applied in January 23 for the profiler program, really expecting to better understand other people. But when we went through all the dichotomies that make up different personalities, it became a pretty fascinating look at myself. Ooh. And very much showed up as a different experience, a better, more complete experience that I went in expecting to happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, expressing that it was, you thought, I mean, I'm guessing you also got some tools to talk with other people, but it really became a thing of like, oh, I see what I'm doing. I see why I'm showing up in a way.
Yeah. And I'm just glad I was able to get over the nerves to show up there.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that really helped me, and I'm sure it helped others there, was when you started the event, you started it with getting people comfortable with the environment. Yeah. I was a bundle of raw nerves going into that thing. And within a few hours, I felt like just really comfortable around people that weren't judgmental. It was an international community that came together and really just wanted to understand personality. And it was just an amazing experience.
That's awesome. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much for saying that. I might come back to you in a moment to briefly touch. We got to keep rolling though, for time's sake, because I want to get to this deep reading people stuff. And I have two more people to handle here. So let's go into it. Klaus, what's your best fit type, Klaus, and where are you coming from?
Hello, my name is Klaus. I'm an ISTP and I'm originally from Germany.
Originally from Germany. You actually work with us here on the team. So I don't know if you can remember back to your first profiler training, or if maybe you want to talk more about using this in a professional fashion, because you basically went through profiler training and now you've connected it and you professionally profile people. So I'll let you speak to either the event or however you want to speak to stuff. You want me to ask you a more direct question, but you might have some things to say already.
Yeah, I can just, I guess, just talk and see what comes up. That's something that, as I've embraced my co-pilot of sensation fully, it's like I trust the moment much more, and I just trust that whatever wants to be spoken through me will speak through me now. And I wrote down from the slides, like practice, feedback, community. There's so many things to talk about, but what stood out to me as I was thinking was like the skills that I learned that I wasn't ever anticipating, like all the things that you learn by actually profiling that you didn't even know you didn't know, if that makes sense. Like for me, like I thought I was this like weirdo with people, and then once I actually got into the practice of profiling, I realized I'm a really good listener. And I kind of knew that, but I didn't know how much of that was true. And like that's just one of like hundreds of examples where I realized things about myself that I didn't anticipate, which doesn't only include like strengths I didn't know about. It's also like not necessarily weaknesses, but all like realizing all the things I didn't know, and like the humbling part of the experience of learning to profile, like all the things where it's like you also couldn't anticipate that were difficult about this thing that you only really realize when you actually do the thing. Like in theory, it's quite easy, but then you do it and you come across like 10 new things that are really difficult to handle in the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what I hear you saying is that by putting this into deliberate practice, it really highlighted you got to know what you didn't know. It highlighted the things that you were, the missing pieces that your theory was just like painting over, maybe brushing over quickly, but you're like, no, actually that's something that maybe I am really good at, or maybe I need to work on that. You got real clarity for the real, the tangible.
Yes, and then like also like understanding more about me and like opening up new worlds, even outside the personality hacker like world, like realizing this present moment stuff got me into different like psychotechnologies they are called, so like meditation with people, and like it opened me up, like it was a gateway into like so many other things that I don't think I would have found without having found profiler training. So it's like for me it was one of the entry drugs into like the spiritual realm as well, I think.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
great.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for being on our team and
Yeah.
being one of our professional profilers. I'm going to move on to Ari. I might circle back here in a moment. Ari, best fit type, where are you coming from?
Ari, best fit type ENFJ. I'm in Arlington, Virginia. I didn't realize, honestly, how many of us were in Virginia from this call.
Taking it over.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing. Not Canada. Canada, the Canadians are coming for us, though, normally at these events. That's one thing that you'll get at the event, a lot of Canadians, which is a really great thing, though, because they're all really nice. So I, kind of similarly, actually, to what Melissa and Jen were saying, when I first joined, was kind of for more information to deep dive into, because leading up to that, I had been binging the podcast hard. I've probably listened to the vast majority of the episodes, taken notes on a lot of them, and I was running out of content. And so that was kind of what got me hooked, was, and wanting to do the event, was just being able to consume more of that, but also have people to talk to about it while learning, because there were a lot of things I wanted to talk about and not very many people who wanted to hear about it or could even try to keep up with what I was talking about. So definitely just the ability to learn about this thing that actually was so exciting to me. I get excited about learning about different things, but it can burn out quickly if it's, if I'm hitting a wall. And this was one thing that no matter how much I consumed, there was always more. And almost the more you learn, the less you know, because there's just so much complexity and nuance there. So there's no way to get bored. You just keep consuming. And getting to meet a group of people who also are addicted to this the same way you are, in a healthy way and stuff, is something that like you don't really realize like what that impact on your life is going to be until you experience it. And I think even just the Q&A sessions before the live event, those were always great because it was like, oh my gosh, look at all these people. We're all doing this thing together. Also, I'm sure like no one's going to act like we weren't all really excited to meet the two of you. I know that the first day of the conference, when Joel walked out in his sunglasses and looked like celebrity Jesus, I was like, oh my God. But the live event itself is something that also, like Melissa said, it's not really something that you can put into words. It's something that you absolutely have to experience. I can personally say for myself that I've never experienced the level of depth and connection in my life that I've experienced at these events. And Pittsburgh, this was my third event now. That's the other thing. Also, Melissa mentioned this, you can do all these other programs after you've gone through profiler training. And if that wasn't already good enough, like it keeps getting better too. There's more. And that just means you get to keep coming back and seeing more familiar faces that you've connected with from around the world, but also meet a ton more people who also love this thing that you love, and watch yourself experience massive amounts of growth between each of those. Like I've seen huge transformations in my own life in the time between each of these events. And I think that the impact I've been able to make in some of like my relationships with my family or with friends or even at work, just by having this better, more thorough understanding than I even felt like I maybe already had of people. It's just been like, I said a lot of words, even though I keep saying like, there aren't words to describe. But those are the words I guess I would try to use to describe that.
You're doing great. I'll end with everybody here because I know we want to move on. I'll just give you a brief moment to share this for each of you. I'll start with you, Ari, and we'll just go backwards from where we started. If someone's right now trying to make a good decision about possibly joining this program, how can they be wise about thinking about this? Like, if you have any wisdom or any thoughts around making a good decision?
I would say if you really value personal growth, and if that had anything to do with the reason that you got hooked on this stuff in the first place, I don't think that there is a better thing for you to invest in. I don't know that I would have gotten to the point that I feel like I've reached now without any of this. And if I had, it would have taken me way longer. So if you value personal growth, like seriously consider this. If you value connecting with people, or maybe need a little nudge to connect with people because the people around you maybe aren't the ones that you want to connect with, this is a really wise decision to make. I don't know. I don't know if that's that's my advice. I just think that there aren't any reasons I would say this is not a wise decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you very much. Klaus, do you have any comments on somebody, each of you are different types. You might resonate with different people. So from an ISTP's perspective, what are some things to think about? How do we be wise about this?
It's again, my co-pilot. I had this phrase come up, trust your gut. Like there's probably a reason you're here, and just trust that maybe. And and then also just like, I already noticed it like 5 minutes into this, like there's an energy, like the community stuff, like there's an energy, my energy shifts already. It's like, oh yeah, like I've not met any of the other panelists at a live event, but I already feel that energy from the live events I attended, which was earlier. So that community part as well, that you might feel it as well. And trust your gut in that, maybe.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you, Klaus. Yeah, there is a vibe, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's just like this profiler training vibe.
I-
Mhm.
I think I'm feeling it too with the
Mhm.
pale going. Okay,
Yeah.
I gotta keep moving. Sorry for time, everybody. So sorry. Tom, advice. Do you have any? No, because this
My driver is accuracy. I'm very data oriented. So I had a whole list of reasons why I shouldn't go to the live event. And I was completely wrong. The experience was exceptionally powerful. And I learned things about myself and about how other people, personalities show up. And the Appalesque one more thing for me was the community. The community has been there for me and for each other after the event's over. And that was just exceptional to me. So whatever fears, uncertainty, and doubts you have, I can tell you that I am just glad I made that final push and showed up, because it was worth it.
we are too.
Thank you, guys.
We are too. And Jen, if you had advice to give.
Sure. Tom, I'm glad you did too. It was a pleasure to meet you. So ultimately, be ready to grow and to challenge yourself in your growth. And if you're in that place where you're ready to be challenged in that, the community is so supportive in that challenge. There was a large gap between the time that I originally consumed the content, of course, continued to listen to podcasts, and attended the live event. And I didn't know anybody, like nobody from my class was at the live event. And yet immediately, I mean, I think you guys noticed it too, I was immediately pulled into the energy, immediately pulled into any sort of hesitation around whether it was the right time and place for me to go. And, you know, obviously time and resources are time and money are resources. So make sure you have that available. And I highly recommend going to the live event if you do decide to sign up. But personal growth, if you're into that, whether you want to do profiling or not, this will open so many doors. So yeah,
That's great.
what I can say. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Melissa, take us home. I need last minute advice before we finish this part.
I guess at the end of the day, like Antonia's always saying, this really is a psyche to psyche experience. And so there's only so far you can go without being plugged into a community who is also interested in all of this and also interested in personal growth. And so just just do it.
Good advice. Thank you. Honestly, thank you. I think it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
And thank you all for being here tonight.
Yes.
I know you're giving a gift to
Yes.
people that are with us, watching, and giving a gift to us.
You're
sitting here.
giving a gift to us too.
And you're signaling the type of energy that we want to curate and keep going. And so all of you have much gratitude for. So thank you so much. Appreciate your time, your talents, your energy, your attention. Have a great rest of your day. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Okay. So we're going to jump into going into some of the content about deep reading people, because the point of this is to talk about some of the secrets of deep reading. And we want to give you a few of the things that you can take away from this session to begin applying. We like to kind of give the secret formula.
Yep.
And some of the things that you can start using. We think that it's really good to use a methodology and plug in a community, all that, but we're going to give you some of the formula to be able to use in your life regardless.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, in this, we're actually going to tell you all the ingredients, right? Like there's a secret recipe and we're just going to give it to you. And so if you end up doing this in your own practice, that's awesome. And also we're going to encourage you to make a choice that will help you. I think the phrase was, there's a difference between walking across the United States and taking a jet. All right. And profiler training is about taking the jet, but we're going to still reveal the secret sauce behind everything. That said, what is the point of profiling, by the way? Okay. What's the goal of it? What is fundamentally the goal? Because there are people who come to like the webinar, this particular event, with a wide variety of understanding about type. Some people are brand spanking new, like they just discovered their best fit type, or they're still learning it, but there's something here that they know is important, even if they're really, really, really new. All the way up to people who they follow everything. They've read every book, they've watched every video, they've listened to every podcast, they just have all of the information. and they're still interested in profile training. All right. So we're going to talk to both kinds of people. We're going to talk to the people who are brand spanking new, fresh out of the blister packaging. And we're going to talk to people who are so enthusiastic, they know every square inch of theory. But what is profiling though? How does it fit in all of this? Where is profiling fitting in this concept of type? Well, the goal of it is to help another person come to their best fit Myers-Briggs type, okay, by way of conversation and a thorough and engaged conversation. All right. It's a full methodology. It's not just, yes, some people some questions and try to figure things out. It is a system. It's a whole methodology that includes rapport building and the need to build those skills, specific interview techniques so that you become a good interviewer, collaboration with the profilee, meaning that you are bringing them into it. You're not just bequeathing a type upon them and then it's done. All right, I've decided you're this type and go on your way. You're bringing them into the process so that they can give you feedback on whether or not you're seeing what you think you're seeing, and a comprehensive explanation at the end of it, where you can give back to them and help them understand how type can make a difference in their lives. All right. So you're making a real difference for people if you do this well. And as you heard from many people that have gone through profile training, it ends up making a difference for you as well. All right. So you're making shifts in lives, your own and other people. And that's the goal of profiling. If you're brand new, your best fit type, we call it your best fit type preferences. It identifies your 4-letter code. So do you have a preference for introversion or extroversion? A preference for sensing or intuition? A preference for thinking or feeling, or a preference for judging or perceiving? So fundamentally, that's your best fit type, right? That 4-letter code. And those are technically called dichotomies. So a profiling session is fundamentally helping somebody find their 4-letter code, their preferential dichotomies. But it also helps us understand a deeper layer, which are technically called cognitive functions. This is your mental wiring preference for your relationship to your inner world, yourself, and your relationship to your outer world or your environment. It's how you take in information and learn and perceive, right? This is your perception and how you take in new information, and how you evaluate that information, or your decision-making criteria, right? Your judging criteria, how you judge things. So the goal of a profiling session is to ensure that people can, through the methodology of a conversation, help people understand these things about themselves, which is very powerful.
Now, some people might say, well, wait a minute, why do I need to have a conversation with somebody? Can I just watch a YouTube video? Can I just observe from a distance? And yeah, you can type people from a distance and observe that, but there is something special about the psyche to psyche experience.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, we're calling it deep reading, and we picked up this word deep reading and actual reading. We think deep reading is actually what they just used to call reading, but it's, instead of just getting snippets of information, deep reading is thorough. It takes time. It's contemplative. And we're contrasting that with what usually happens in communities that really are into type, which is more like speed reading. Okay, so this is more like typing. So what is fundamentally speed reading? Well, it's quickly determining the personality type of a friend or colleague using behavior, speech, and body language as clues. The assessment is done without collaboration from the subject. So you're observing, you're taking sort of a snapshot, you're watching some of their behaviors, you might hear some of their speech patterns, and you're determining their type. Deep reading, though, this is what profiling is. It's a much deeper skill set. It's conversing and interviewing another individual in a thoughtful manner with the purpose of increasing comprehension of their best fit type through the conversation and the enjoyment of connection. So the thing that makes it a depth experience isn't just depth of information, it's depth of connection. It's really understanding the other person, and instead of just determining meaning from a distance, collaborating with them. The assessment is done in collaboration with your subject, with the person you're talking to. So it goes deeper in both understanding, but also in connection, which is one of the hidden gem features of a good profiling session. We also want to contrast deep reading with what we're calling meme reading. Okay. And what would meme reading people be? Well, this is a projection of type onto other people. It's using oversimplified meme level understanding of type to match people to the system. So you have this sort of templatized or meme level understanding of type, and then you're fitting people into that. All right. And so as opposed to having a nice marriage or an alchemical relationship between the system and a person, instead, the system is the final arbiter. It's the God, even if your understanding is on a meme level, and you're sort of shoving people into these meme or templatized stereotypical views of people. It doesn't really require an understanding of the system, and it doesn't really understand or require an understanding of the individual. Whereas deep reading requires both. Okay, you have to have a deep level understanding of the system, but a deep level understanding of the person that you're talking to, which is why it's so crucial.
It's almost alchemical, the way that these two nodes come together, and it helps you discover somebody's best fit type with them.
That's right.
And unlocks the ability for you to help them. That's the key thing too.
That's right. Exactly. You're so much more helpful to the other person if you are able to have this depth of insight and to match these two things together and seek the center of the Venn diagram. When you're bequeathing type, when you're projecting type, when you're just deciding another person's type based on some of their behavioral cues, sometimes not only can you get the type inaccurate, which happens, by the way, even when you're learning the skill of profiling, accuracy is not your number one god, and especially initially when you're just developing it. We talk about that all the time, but you gain a greater understanding, and you have a greater understanding of the person you're talking to, which we always say, when was the last time somebody spent an hour being fascinated by you as a human being? And that's a big piece of the depth reading of profiling, is that you're fascinated by the person, you're getting depth around them as an individual. And all by itself, it can be quite a cathartic experience.
Yeah.
In order to deep read, though, you need 4 things. Okay. These are the 4 secrets, all right, of deep reading people. First, you do need a solid experiential understanding of the system, not just theory junkie understanding, not just understanding all the little pieces and all the intricacies of every square inch of the system, but an experiential understanding of the system, meaning that you apply it in your life. It's come alive for you as a person. You realize that this is not something that we just have to, do all the math, all the calculus, but this is something that we play out in our lives. And so a solid, alive experience of type is part of how you deep read other people. The second is a solid understanding of the individual themselves, right? That person, they're a human, they're complex. There's a lot to them. And so you can't just go, oh, you pick your nose with your left hand, so therefore you must be this type. It's like, we actually all do human things. Our behavior is usually humaning. Okay. It's not often type related. It's humaning. We ask a question that at the beginning of a profiling session, we call it the flow question. And I actually end up getting almost predominantly 5 answers from every single personality type. There are things like reading, playing with your kids, gardening usually comes up. All right. These are human things. And so just seeing somebody's behavior doesn't necessarily indicate what their type is, because we're all humaning all the time. So we have to get a little bit deeper. Why is the person doing what they're doing? What's going on underneath the surface? What is it about reading, right? What kinds of things are they reading? Not that you just like to read. So you need a solid understanding of the individual as well. The third thing is you need the context the individual find themselves in. Okay. So
that's a big one.
This is huge. An INTJ is not an INTJ is not an INTJ. Okay. There are some things that are, obviously there's a pattern there. So there are things that are common to all INTJs, but an INTJ that finds themselves in chemical engineering is going to be very different than an INTJ that is a janitor. Are there INTJ janitors? Of course there are, right? They're going to have 2 different lives versus an INTJ stay-at-home mom versus an INTJ jazz improv artist, okay? They're all going to be very different, unique people. And so the context that they're in is important. And those are the kinds of things that you can call out when you're talking to a person in an interview. And finally, how development impacts personality. Okay. You just heard a lot of people that have come to live events and joined profiler training talk about growth and development. Well, we have adopted our friend and colleague, Dr. Dario Nardi's phrase, you can't talk about type unless you're talking about development. All right. So the moment in the timeline the person's at, a 20-year-old ESTP is not the same as a 50-year-old ESTP. All right. A 25-year-old, INFP is going to look very different than a 60-year-old INFP. Where are they at in their growth and development? Where are they at in their maturation, right? And that's a big one. Okay, this is a key piece because sometimes people get locked into an understanding of type at a certain age, at a certain maturity level, and they don't think you can get out of that, right? But growth, development, moments on the timeline, all of that is relevant. And those are things that we feel are very important to understand in a profiling session. What's the person's context? Where they come from? How old are they? What is their lifetime of experiences? Tell me more about where you used to be. How were you when you were young? How are you now? All of these things are very relevant in a profiling session. All right. And you have to have all four. All right. In order to do deep reading of people, you have to have all four of these components, which, by the way, profiler training provides. Okay.
Yeah.
Profiler training provides all four of these deep needs. And that's why we feel like it's such an important methodology for really helping people come to their best fit type.
Yeah, let's go to an aside here and just talk a little about that. Understanding the system. Obviously, we go very deep into the system, and we're very keen on ensuring that you or anyone else in this program or anyone in our ecosystem really understands the system and doesn't have too much. When we say understand the system, sometimes it's unlearning, because sometimes people can get, like we said, rigid around everything has to fit into boxes. So we want to expand a deep understanding of how this all works and let go a little bit of the rigidity and the holding. We do this by having digital content. So for 6 months preparing for the live event, you go through and you learn all of the system that we talk about. So if you're brand new, you can go from 0 to 60 in those 6 months, right? If you are a little more advanced, it's still good to go through review, but there's often things that are taking you from what you know now and layering in on the cognitive function level of things to look for in profiling. And then the 5-day event is where this culminates. And again, this is the experiential part. So if the digital content is learning and understanding and filling your mind and making distinctions and talking with people online, at the 5-day event, we don't do a lot of study and writing. We are in experiences almost the entire 5 days. And at the last day, on Saturday, we actually pair you, and you might have been one of these volunteers recently. We pair you with someone on Zoom to do a live profiling session, someone you've never met before. The stakes are high, but you're in it together with your other students. And it's a really fun experience, because often there are people from our community, maybe podcast listeners, they're very kind. It's really a great experience, but it allows you to test your chops. It allows you to go through 6 months to prepare and then come to the live event, be a part of the community, learn together experientially. We do things like embodiment exercises where we take the cognitive functions and we find out how we can get into those energies and understand them energetically and experientially as a group. And then I can say, wait, Antonia, you're doing it that way? That's not how I do that at all. And we can compare and contrast with each other, which is so powerful. So that digital content of the live event, we believe, really gives you a solid understanding, both intellectually and also experientially, which is powerful. So that's the first need. The second one, which is understanding the individual. We talk about the interview techniques and calibration. We begin this process, in fact, it's happening next week, with an orientation to make sure you feel comfortable navigating all the digital content, all the stuff you need to learn. And we can talk a little about that in a moment here, but we get you up to speed on orientation, orientate you to where to find everything in the membership and all that. And then we also host a virtual welcome event straight out of the gate when we start up, in order to set you up with the process of profiling and recommendations where you should focus and how to get started. So we don't, here, read and study this and get on your own. We have a syllabus, we get you set up, and we get you into a process of understanding the individual and work on interview techniques and calibration. Often, building rapport, things like this, we workshop how to create energetic rapport, how to create data rapport. Those are 2 different types of rapport we talk about in the program. And then we invite you to hang out with a virtual event 3 months in the curriculum in September. And we do this every 6 months. It's for alumni, anybody that's ever been part of the program. We do this a virtual event in between our big live events that you just be invited to every year. And we really work on different topics. Those are more topical. Anyone that's brand new or all the way to alumni can come to those. So we really believe that helps understanding the individual that you're going to be working with. So you understand the system, the individual you're working with. And then the next is to understand the context. And what we think the best way to do this, to understand the context that your client someday when you're profiling them is coming from, we think that you can understand context by seeing other students and other people in the community, like alumni and students, in not their natural environment, but in their natural lives. So you're gonna have types, like you saw Klaus here was an ISTP. You're around Klaus, who knows personality type, who understands the system. You get to see him in context of his type in a learning environment and compare and contrast notes, and other people in the community, other INFJs. If you're an INFJ, you get to see how they show up and compare and contrast notes.
Yeah.
We think this is really powerful for understanding the context of where people are coming from.
Yeah, we have multiple ISTPs and they're all a little different, right? And so you can go, where'd you grow up? What's the situation you find yourself in? Klaus right now is a world traveler, right? He's almost always on the road. Well, we have another ISTP who's a sound engineer, and she's a very different kind of ISTP than Klaus is. So having conversation with both of them and understanding how their context has influenced them is one of the key advantages to going through the profiler training program, because you get access to a community of people who are very forthcoming, who will talk about their context, who will talk about how it's influenced them, and get a lot of distinctions between what is ISTP preferences and what is the individual, right? Sometimes it's really hard to flay those things out. And we really feel like the community is one of the best ways to understand context.
Yeah. So then finally, and this is, I mean, if you've been listening to our podcast, if you've been anywhere in Personality Hackers ecosystem in anything, come to a live event, a live podcast, anything, you know that we really talk about type development. We talk about personality development, personal growth. It's so key. And it's such a fundamental piece that we believe makes people better profilers. It makes people better coaches. It makes people better people too. Like, you get reflection back. And we think that the community can also help this. So if you understand type development, often starting with the self, and understand how you're developing in your personality type, you work with your community fellow students and alumni, and you watch them develop and grow and change. Now you're starting to tap into how people in general grow and change. And as you're working with clients in the future, you're going to understand, okay, this person has maybe some trauma, or this person has really worked on this area of their life. So no wonder they're showing up more proficient this way. They're giving me a false read on their personality because they've done so much here. And so I think that this understanding type development can't be emphasized enough. If you watched, I think a couple months ago, we shared a video with Antonia on the main stage doing a profiling session. It was with Liz.
Mm-hmm.
Liz had a very traumatic upbringing, and she had done a lot of personal growth. And because she'd done a lot of personal growth, that meant she had grown her auxiliary co-pilot. And it was demonstrating in her personality that she had done a lot of growth there. And I think somebody maybe uninitiated maybe new starting out, might have missed that was her co-pilot, because they might have taken into account that was a growth framework she was coming from. They might have seen that as her dominant, for example. Like, oh, that's how she's showing up. Well, no, she's put a lot of effort into that. So understanding the growth she's done helps get more calibrated, helps get more accurate in your assessment of other people and helping them arrive at that best fit type together. So we do that through live calls, Q&A calls every month. We've had alumni that have come back since like 2011, 2012.
Yep.
These are available to you once you join the program indefinitely, whether you join an advanced program or not. We just love having students to be part of these every month. We have two, one in the earlier afternoon for people in Europe and overseas, and then one later in the evening for people in America that are getting off work. So we try to make two different time zones that can be available to people in any context they're in. So what if you not only had this power to deep read people in your life by learning the skill of personality profiling, but you also could give them specific and targeted advice that matches their mindset, their personality and mindset, and their personal struggles? Because in that profiling experience, as you go through the actual profiling session, it's natural for people at the end to say, what do I do with this? Can you, profiler, who just took me through this experience, can you give me advice, specific target advice, now that you know how I'm wired, that can help me? And now you have the opportunity to impact people's lives, not only determine their best fit type, but be able to offer, to be able to contribute, to be able to impact. So we have a lot of and we'll talk about this in a moment, but therapists, coaches, teachers, trainers, people that are in the human need meeting end of things, or humanities, or the people that want to contribute and offer to others. We have a lot of people that come from that world because they understand how impactful this can be. We also have people that use this in their lives just because they love it, like in their personal lives or in their jobs or just in the daily flow of how they go through existence. But I think it's really key to understand this impact part, how much you can offer with this, because you've built rapport with them and now you understand where they're coming from, and they've already leaned into you for at least an hour in this profiling session. They're ripe for hearing from you on what they can do next in their life. So it's a really great opportunity you have.
Yep. And one of the reasons why it really helps offer targeted advice, specific targeted advice, again, because you've been talking to them about their lives for the last hour, but also profiling or deep reading helps you do certain things that robs us of our ability to be helpful. First, it stops us from believing that there are silver bullets. All right. Like, all ENTPs should be doing this one thing. And if they're doing this one thing, then they'll be fine.
Well, they say they love people, so they're clearly an extrovert.
Right.
Right. They love people. The extrovert, check.
Exactly.
Right? Silver bullet question.
Right. Finding patterns too early, right? Thinking that you're seeing a certain pattern and then not doing any sort of check and balance on that. We frequently say in profiling, you're probably going to get at least a read on somebody in the first 5 or 10 minutes. If you are married or attached to that read in the first 5 or 10 minutes, spend the next 50 minutes trying to prove yourself wrong. Okay, look for all the things that tell you that you're actually wrong about your early read. And it's not uncommon for us to be at least one letter off, even if we've been doing it for a decade, to be at least one letter off of our initial read, because people are complex and they show up with all sorts of different ways and modalities of going about things. So this really deep reading keeps us from thinking that there are silver bullets. It keeps us from finding patterns too early. It reminds us not to lean in on stereotypes and personal biases. Oh, that person makes me think of my dad, so they have to be my dad's personality type. Well, that's if you got your dad's personality type right to begin with, because most of us actually are pretty blind towards our families or best fit types. It takes a while for that. But the other piece of it is, let's say you do know your dad's best fit type. Just because this person looks like them doesn't mean that they're the same. So deep reading really gives us insight into where our personal biases are coming in. It also helps us deal with information overwhelm. When you do a solid profiling session, you're going to get a ton of information. It's going to be hard to know how to juggle it all, but through a methodology and a way of building skill around it, you don't get overwhelmed by the information of the person and do the opposite, which is oversimplify them.
Yeah.
That's what happens when we experience information overwhelm. We end up going 180 degrees and oversimplifying. The methodology of profiling helps you know how to juggle the information, how to make it useful.
Yeah.
And we stop overvaluing behavior. Like I said, a lot of stuff we do is just humaning, right? Are there certain personalities that like their kids and others that don't? No, there are some people that like their kids and others that don't. But I've known of tons of personality types that you would think would not be kid friendly that absolutely adore kids, and other personality types that you think are designed for it. And they're like, I'm never having children. So we don't want to overvalue behavior, and deep reading keeps us from doing that. And we also want to make sure, again, not to undervalue context. Context is very important and influences type in a host of different ways. So profiling or deep reading people prioritizes the individual, not the system. We're not understanding and mastering a system and try to shove people into it. We're understanding the individual, we're understanding the system, and we're seeking that Venn diagram. Where do they match up in the center of it? So there's no shoehorning or gerrymandering or trying to shove somebody into a box. It's actually the exact opposite.
Okay, we're going to give you step by step now, some things like the actual order of this process, how it works. We're going to peel back the curtain and give you the next level and go step by step of the 4 secrets of deep reading people, how we structure an actual profiling session. So you can actually start doing this in your life if you want.
That's right.
You can take this and start implementing it.
That's right. So we do 4 different components to this methodology. The first is we do rapport building. Rapport building is incredibly important. We'll talk about why in just a moment. The second is the interview. This is the meat. This is what most people think of when they think of profiling, which is asking a bunch of questions. But the interview also has its own skills that have to be developed. The third is what we call verification. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And the fourth is the explanation, the portion where you give back to the person who has allowed you to spend time with them to hone your skill of profiling. Okay, so what do they all look like? So building rapport is crucial. Okay. And there's actually 2 different kinds of rapport that we talk about in profiler training and really develop as skills. Joel just mentioned energetic and data rapport before. They're both really important tracks of rapport that have to be juggled. Okay. And usually we, as different personality types, we have a tendency to like one over the other. Energetic rapport is really important because that's when you're in a vibe with somebody. That's when they trust you. That's when they feel like you have their best interest at heart. You're in that sort of that energy where you just kind of want to be around the person. You like the cut of their jib. It's really important to do that because then they feel safe with you. You're going to get higher quality, more authentic answers if the person believes that you have their best interest at heart. And they leave feeling better than when the profiling session started. That's how you know that you have good energetic rapport, is that you're actually improving the quality of the conversation and they're bouncing that back to you. Data rapport, on the other hand, is when you are meeting of the minds. You're making sure that what they're saying, you understand, and what you're saying, they understand. It's the same thing, but instead of an energetic vibe, it's a track between 2 people's minds and meeting them. And when you have good data rapport, and there are certain skills you build to do that as well, is you verify that you're understanding their answers. So as opposed to misinterpreting what they said and then later on that being disastrous, you build a skill of all the way through making sure that you understand what they say. You can say things like, what I hear you saying is, and Joel actually said that earlier when he was talking to some of the profiler training students that have come to live events. We have a methodology where we say, what I hear you saying is, and making sure that we understand what they're saying to us. You show up competent and you lend weight to the ultimate conclusion. So if you've got good data rapport, the person trusts you. They trust your information. You're not sort of bumbling around or going, oh, what's that thing again? Or hold on, I've got to write this down. You already have a methodology for taking high quality notes. You have a methodology for making sure you understand their answers and you're not putting words in their mouth, and they just relax into it. And so we can come to a conclusion. They go, okay, well, I trust this person because they've been careful the entire session.
Yeah. This is really about trust. Rapport is about trust. Energetic rapport is about trust of intent. I trust that we're vibing. You're not going to hurt me. We're in this together. We're connected. And then data rapport is trust of information. I understand you. I trust the things you're saying are true. I understand them. You can trust what I'm saying is true and you can understand me. And so it's really a trust thing. When we build rapport, it's speed of trust. And when you can build that speed quickly, that allows you to have a great profiling session.
That's right. And ultimately, if you have good data rapport, the person feels seen, heard, and understood. Okay. So even though it's a data piece, you're still enriching the person's experience. And it might be the first time they've ever felt those three things, right? Because it's really easy for us to feel lonely and misunderstood. Good data rapport, make sure that they feel understood by you. And what happens if you don't have it? Well, if you don't have energetic rapport, you give them the impression that they're being studied under a microscope. All right. Tell me more information. No, continue talking.
It's
right.
clinical.
It's too clinical. You introduce awkward energy that they have to save you from sometimes. Okay. So then you don't really have control of this conversation. You're not securing the perimeter for them. They're doing it for you. And so they don't leave feeling like they had a good experience. And you can also get too much energetic rapport, which is putting too much emphasis on liking each other, which means you're actually not going to get good data rapport. You're going to get bad information because the two of you are just trying to nod and reinforce that you really like this person. You want to say exactly what they want, what you think they want to hear. Well, unfortunately, while you might really like the person, you can go away with not really understanding anything about them. And if you don't have good data rapport, you assume you understand everything they're saying, even if they're using words that you interpret this way, but they actually meant it another way. So you make a lot of assumptions around it. You take zero notes if you're doing this poorly, right? You don't do what we call having callbacks, which will be very important in a moment when we talk about the third and fourth component of a profiling session. So you don't really remember anything they said specifically, you just have impressions, and you don't seem to indicate that what they say is important to you. And you might be struggling with questions or definitions. If you don't have good data rapport, if you don't look like you understand your topic and have mastery over it, then the person is going to have a hard time feeling understood because they're just watching you sort of bumble through the process. They're going to think that you're more invested in trying to remember all this stuff than really hearing them. So the energetic rapport channel, which of course you probably have already patterned that feelers tend to be better at, and the data rapport channel, which thinkers tend to be better at. Both channels are important. And what we have learned in profiler training is that there's also times when you have to break each. So it's not just establishing it, and it's not just establishing both of them, it's juggling them. It's knowing how much and when, which requires some seasoning and some practice.
Yeah.
All right. So we also have to become a solid interviewer. Okay. So the second portion is an interview. And we all know a bad interviewer because we complain about them all the time, right? You talked over your guest. You didn't let them really flay anything out. You jumped to topics when it was just getting interesting. Okay.
You didn't follow that rabbit trail.
That's right. I wanted you to ask more about this thing. And then you were just bouncing all over the place. So there's actually a skill to being a solid interviewer, and profiler training teaches people how to become good interviewers. So what are the key skills required? Well, you have to develop an honest curiosity for all people's stories. All right. You have to sort of leave the judgment at the door and just listen to them as a person and understand they're having a human experience. And that's all interesting and fascinating. And it's all content. It's also expressing sympathy for their experiences. One of the things that people say they come out of profiler training with is being a lot less judgmental about people's life experiences. They start to understand that there's a story here. There's something behind all of the things that they're doing. So what is easy to judge when you just see the tip of the iceberg becomes a lot more sympathetic when you truly are a good interviewer and hear their story. You become fully present to the interview. You're not checking your phone or distracted with other things. You're really present with the person, which is a cathartic experience for most individuals. You have a list of field tested questions that garner rich responses. So in profiler training, we have field tested questions that we know are really good at evoking a deeper part of a person, where they're not just telling you shallow surface stuff and their behaviors, but really the whys underneath. You fully listen to their answers. You don't talk over them. You don't go, oh, me too, I do stuff like that too. You really listen to the full, complete answer. And you have ask follow-up questions like, so what's your relationship to that thing? Or why do you think you're saying that thing, right? You get deeper into the guts of what's going on, and you don't just stay surface. And if you don't interview well, you end up going too fast and jumping to your first type guess, which is always a mistake. I've come to understand. I developed this methodology in 2010. I've been using it consistently for the last 13 years. And if I'm right in my first 5-minute type guess, it's like a broken clock, right? You're just going to be right twice a day. And I'm not saying that I don't have a pretty good solid read. I think actually I'm pretty good at what I'm doing, what I do. I've been doing it for a very long time, but I have learned that people show up in a myriad of ways. And so if you are not a solid interviewer, you jump too soon to your conclusions. You do too much talking and talk over them. You don't give them enough time to answer. Right? You want to fill the dead air. Sometimes people are really uncomfortable with silence. And so a poor interviewer won't allow a person to just like sit with a question and really allow it to emerge. You talk over them because you're awkward. You appear distracted and disengaged. You ask no follow-up questions. You insert your own opinions into the interview, right? Maybe even get judgmental of the things they're saying. You don't show sympathy for their human experience, right? They don't really feel seen and heard. They feel judged. And you get lost in their story and forget to connect it to type. So a solid interviewer also remembers the point of why they're interviewing, right? Not just, wow, that's super fascinating. And then all of a sudden an hour's gone by and you're like, oh, I had a job to do. Okay. So being a good interviewer means that you can juggle both sides of this.
Yeah.
All right. So the third aspect is what we call verification. Verification is arriving at a best fit type together. This is when the person gets to give you feedback. So it requires scripting a solid, succinct, and unbiased explanation of each dichotomy. All by itself can be a game changer for a person, even if they've known type forever. Have you ever tried to explain, maybe you're a judger and you think perceivers are big chaos oriented? Okay, now tell somebody that they're a perceiver and tell them in a way that they can receive the information without feeling judged. Are you an intuitive who has intuitive bias, right? And you don't think that sensors are as cool? Now describe somebody as a sensor. Are you a feeler and you think thinkers are cold-hearted, and so on and so forth? Okay, so just having an unbiased explanation all by itself will point out what our biases are, the things that we're carrying into the world. It's actually very powerful to create one.
By the way, the dichotomies, just in case you're brand new, that's that 4-letter code, the Myers-Briggs code that you have, like ENFP preferences. That's what dichotomies means.
That's right, exactly. A good verification connects those dichotomies to the things they said. We call them callbacks, right? And that's why you want to take really good notes. That's why data rapport is super important, taking good notes, because when you talk to the person and say, I think I'm seeing feeling preferences. Well, they're like, well, I'm not overly emotional. I must be a thinker. And you go, well, remember when you talked about how people are the most important thing? And while logic is important too, and that's something that you keep track of and that you want to have represented, at the end of the day, it's really the personal component that's important to you. That's more feeling preferences. So a good verification means you've taken solid notes and you have what we call our callbacks. All right. And it means acknowledging our own prejudices. Are we describing feelers as nice and thinkers as cold? Do we think feelers are over emotional and thinkers are better because they're logical? Man, those prejudices are deep inside of us. And sometimes we don't even know until we start doing the verification processes. And so really getting to the nucleus of all of this and then explaining it in a way where they can understand, they can receive it, they can resonate with it, right? This is really important. And arriving at that best fit type together helps them feel honored. You're not just saying, oh, you're an ISTP, I've just decided, right? You go, remember when you were talking about this? That tends to be associated with these kinds of preferences. And the person with a really good verification will go, yeah, I totally see that. Thank you for pointing it out. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do it well, you look like you're struggling to explain the differences. You're getting too theoretical. Sometimes you get over people's heads, right? If you don't have like a really good succinct explanation, you introduce your biases and and you feed them in a way that ensures they'll resonate. Okay. So you start describing it like, I think you're a feeler. Now, remember, feelers are nicer than thinkers, right? That's not the impression you want to leave. That's not what type is about. But if you're not really good at the verification process, you might be feeding them things just so they'll agree with you. I don't want to be a disorganized mess. I guess I'm a judger, right? And if you don't do it well, you don't know how to deal with pushback, meaning that the verification process is where you go, this is what I'm seeing. And then you say, does that resonate? And if the person says no, well, in profiler training, we then it's your job to go back into the interview to see what you missed. But if you struggle with this portion and you say, I think you're, an introvert, and the person's like, no, I'm an extrovert. And you're like, well, but I think you're an introvert because I saw all this stuff. And they're like, no, I'm definitely an extrovert. Well, if you don't do a good verification process, if you don't really know what you're doing there, you won't know how to deal with that pushback. You'll just go, well, that's what I'm seeing. So you're just going to have to eat it, right? Well, that's not really a good profiling session. So getting good at this portion is important because it's collaborative. They get to say, yes, I'm resonating with it. At the end of all of it, when you get to the next portion of it, they'll already have relaxed and trusted in the diagnostic, and you've been able to deal with any pushback, right? Because you're good at this portion.
So as we talk about the next piece, remember, you've been spending a period of time with this person, asking them questions about themselves, giving them reflection back. And it's our belief that if you can explain someone's mindset, how their mind is wired, better than they can even articulate to themselves, they're going to immediately open themselves up to the advice you have for them, because you just took the time to work with them to understand where they're coming from. You didn't just watch a video of them and tell them who they are. You actually talked to them and you got feedback and you went through that verification process. Well, now you're in a position to explain their cognition and their mental wiring in a way that starts to open them, and they're going to lean forward and go, what's next? What else do you have for me? Do you have some advice you can give me in my life? And so you've just given yourself an opportunity to actually impact this other person's life in the next stage.
Yes, exactly. Which is the most rewarding component of it, really, is being able to help another person understand their cognition in a way that they never have before. But this is what you need in order to have a really good explanation portion, which is what goes through what are technically called your egosyntonic functions. We call it the car model, right, here at Personality Hacker. So the car model is your driver, your co-pilot, your 10-year-old, and your 3-year-old. And most people, when they have a really solid explanation, it really can be a game changer. So what you need for that is a strong practical understanding of the model, obviously, a simple way to explain the best fit type's cognitive functions to your profilee. What does it mean to have, say, extroverted sensing as a 10-year-old function, as what's technically called the tertiary? How do you explain that to somebody, right? You need to have a solid, not only understanding, but a way of communicating it so they can receive it. You have to have an ability to connect the theory to their real world experiences. Again, callbacks. Why am I seeing extroverted sensing or sensation as a 10-year-old? Well, remember when you were talking about the inability to sit still and the fact that you feel like you always have to be in motion in order to make other people not believe you're lazy and blah, blah, blah. Like there might be some things in there, like you can get a little overindulgent. So you have to have a way to connect their real world experiences to the model. You have to have respect for each personality. Okay, that is fundamental. You have to understand that there is no superior personality or inferior personality, just contextual differences. And so if you have a really good respect for each personality and an ability to communicate the beauty of that best fit type, then you will really truly give them a gift, because this is not about sorting people into good or bad types or making them feel less than, right? We don't want to do that, or better than. We don't want to give them an inferiority or a superiority complex. We want them to be able to understand themselves with greater depth. That's what's important. And bonus, making this experience of self-knowledge so fun, enjoyable, and interesting, it's contagious. Okay, so you can get to a place where you give other people the gift of being bit by the bug, and they can get into it too and have all the richness and reward that you've experienced by being super into the system. All right. If you don't do it well, you show more excitement around explaining the model than connecting it to the person. right? Because it's all about your interest in the model, and then you data dump them. Not that I would know anything about data dumping, but you just make it all about the system and not about the person. You throw around so much technical jargon, a person new to the system can't keep up. These are your egosyntonic functions, and this is what it looks like in the tertiary position. It's like, whoa, hold on, wait. But if you can do it in a good way, you can help them understand really complicated concepts in a very practical way that means something to them, so it can come alive. You overlook real world application. You just make it completely theoretical, which most people don't care about. All right. They weren't necessarily bitten by the bug. So what do they care? You make up information to fill in gaps in knowledge, right? So you start describing things that actually aren't accurate, and you don't know whether or not they're accurate, but you just don't want to look dumb. You speak poorly about their other personality types preferences. So a really poor explanation will, again, either create inferiority or superiority complexes. And you can become overly flattering or overly critical about their best fit type. So getting really good at profiling keeps you from making some of those mistakes.
Hmm.
So our observation has been that developing the skill of profiling turns type from a coloring book experience of type into a Van Gogh. Okay. Coloring book pages are thick, dark lines with not a lot of detail. But when you look at a master's painting, you see not lines, but more like colors smashing up against each other. You see texture, you see beauty, you see all of the different nuances. And when a person gets into profiling, not just becoming a type junkie and not just getting into type and the theory, but actually talking to real people, understanding their experience in their life with their type, understanding that there is a lot more here than just the technical jargon, it helps you see this person as a work of art, as a thing of beauty, as a Van Gogh, right? And that's what we believe is one of the greatest gifts of profiling.
Let's talk a little bit about how you could get involved. If this is something you're interested in, again, we'd love to have you be part of this. We're starting a new class, a new profiler training class, 6-month class. It's going to end in November of this year. It's the digital content plus a live event. Let's talk a little about what's in it and what you could do to get started. And then we're going to take some questions. If you've got questions, I'd love to answer any questions anybody has. Again, we talked about the need of solid experiential understanding of the system. There's over 100 hours of digital content. Core digital content covers the 4 dichotomies, the 8 cognitive functions, 16 types, 4 temperaments. I'm not going to read off the slide. I'll let you read it for yourself. But the point is, we have a ton of digital content lined up. If you're brand new, we can get you started from scratch. It's totally fine. But even if you've got some experience, I think some of the things that we talk about are going to be new for you. We're going to guide you through some understanding that will be really powerful. And I will say that this class is a very unique class that we're starting up, because we already have all this digital content in the membership area available. And by the way, it's like a Netflix model. You just get it all immediately. You don't have to wait for it to come out on a certain schedule or anything. You can just access it all. You could watch 100 hours in like 100 hours straight if you were able to stay up that long. That's fine with us. But there's a unique experience because it's about time for us to do some re-recording around it. We have some new things we want to add into the core content and some new ways that we want to articulate some of the key principles that we think will improve the program. And so immediately when you join Profiler Training and you're accepting the program, you get access to all of this, but you're also going to be invited in a couple months for just a very special recording sessions if you want to come. It'll be freely available to any Profiler Training students. It's probably going to happen once because when we record this, we're not going to be doing that anytime soon. What's nice about it, and I think what would be the benefit to you, is that as we teach the content, we'll just have an open Zoom call, and you can come in and out as you want. We'll take breaks often because we'll be in our studio recording and just going through it to lay down the tracks, probably just weekdays all day long. You can come in and out from that experience. And then on breaks, you can ask questions. You can help us shape the content. And it's just an extra thing that we're going to invite all Profiler Training students, new and alumni, to be part of that creation process that makes sense on their schedule. So we'll just roll all day long through those couple of weeks, and you could just come in when it makes sense on your schedule to be part of that.
Yeah. And then when you come to the 5-day live event, as Joel mentioned, we do what's the highly popular embodiment exercises, which are exercises that get you into each cognitive function, and also what are technically called the polarities. So if you're familiar with cognitive functions, this would be doing an exercise for, say, introverted intuition, what we call perspectives. And then one on the other side of the polarity, which is extroverted sensing or sensation. So we do one for each. But then we also do an embodiment exercise for somebody using introverted intuition first and extroverted sensing second or behind it, and then flip it, an exercise that features extroverted sensing, but also has some introverted intuition in it as well. And so what we're doing is we're trying to get you an experiential, embodied understanding of these functions. So it's not just theoretical. And what's very common is when people go through these, they're surprised at which functions are hard for them and which ones are easy. And sometimes people understand that they're actually mistyped when they go through these function sets, because the embodiment exercise of one was a lot easier than it should have been based on their personality type. And the one that they thought that should be easy was actually much more difficult. So the embodiment exercises really help calibrate and have an experiential relationship to type. It's very popular. People love them. And I've heard alumni say that they wish they could come back just for the embodiment exercises.
Yeah.
We also set you up with volunteers to be profiled. So we make sure that you have everything you need to become a profiler, right? To actually have the skill. Now, we recommend you start right away, but we make sure to calibrate you there at the live event.
Yeah. We also have special events, evening sessions. We invited this past event. We had Dr. Dario Nardi was there talking about his brain scan research on the main stage. We even did a special bonus day that was a ticketed event for the general audience, but anybody that was profiler training at the event just got to come over to that because they were already there. So we just allowed them to come on over as a special guest for that experience. We also had the president of the Association of Psychological Type, Carol Linden, with us on the main stage. We did some interviewing with her, and she presented a little bit about what the APTI does and where that community can be supportive of this entire personality type community. So we have different speakers come and offer and contribute, and we have these special events, which we think are really awesome. And plus you get to connect with our fellow students, right?
Which as you can tell, based on the students, is the highlight, really, is connecting with the community and really being able to meet like minds.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's the
core of it.
Core of the program.
We created this for two types of people, right? So the profiler training program is created for these two types of people. Number one, the profiling enthusiast. So you might find yourself as this person. You're looking to improve and calibrate your profiling skills, studying typology for the last few years, maybe looking for practical techniques to improve, familiar with concepts and theories, but short maybe on practice. You'd love a venue and a community to practice your skills and calibrate and see how this could come up for you. And you need a comprehensive system that integrates all these concepts we talked about tonight, searching for that supportive peer group. So if that's you, I believe profiler training is probably a good fit. The second type of person is more the profiler careerist. So you heard from Klaus earlier tonight. Klaus is an ISTP. He's on our team. He professionally profiles for us. And he wanted to pursue a career in typology. Maybe you want to use this in your current career and job, like maybe you're in HR or you're a therapist or whatever, you want to apply it into your career, or maybe you want to create a career around this as a profiler that offers this as a service for other people.
Yeah. You also talked to Jen, and Jen said that was one of the things that she's wrapping into her psychotherapy, which is very common as well.
Because she's trying to be a therapist right now.
Yeah. So there's careerists who use it in a lot of different applications. We'll talk about some of the people who have joined in just a moment and their varied careers, but almost everybody finds a way to weave it into what they're doing in a professional sense. And I think I think as much as I love the community aspect of it, of course, I would say actually that profiling has become a really important tool in a lot of people's careers.
Yeah.
And so you don't just have to be a profiler, you can weave it into all sorts of careers, and it's very, very beneficial.
It's a really neat skill to have. So let's just get some common questions, and then we'll take your questions if you've got questions. And by the way, you feel free, there's a question button, I think, on here. I want to make sure I'm right. Just go ahead and feel free to put in your question into the field, and we can get those in just a moment. But these are some of the commonly asked questions that people typically will ask us. How is this different from learning the material in the podcast? Maybe you've been a podcast listener to myself and Antonia at the Personality Hacker Podcast. What's different about this?
Yeah, well, so the podcast is whatever we're interested in that week, right? And sometimes it's free form. Sometimes it's an organized series, and sometimes it's just whatever we're talking about. But this is a curated program with a syllabus that walks you through a methodology. So it's not free form. It's not just, content that's haphazard or, it might be interesting to ruminate and think about. This is content that has been curated specifically to develop a skill and to help you in your growth and development while you hone that skill. And so it's a totally different bird. All right. You may have listened to every single podcast we've ever made, and I guarantee you there are things in profiler training that you have never heard us say. So it's content that isn't in the podcast, right? It's content that we leave proprietary to Profiler Training. And also it's a lot more of an organized, curated experience.
It's designed to get a result for you
That's right.
at the end of the day.
That's right. Not
Yep.
just be interesting.
Yeah. How much time and effort needs to be invested in this material? So at the very beginning, again, we give you access to the membership site. All the content is available to you immediately. And then we provide you with a syllabus, which schedules the content on a certain schedule for you that you can follow on your own time. We set it up with dates assigned to it. That syllabus does not go the entire 6 months. We leave a little wiggle room at the end in case you have to play catch up. Maybe you're a full-time student, or you've got a career or a family that you had to take a week in between study and you want to pick right back up. So we have some wiggle room if you don't, it's not like super tight on that 6 months. But that syllabus is really nice because it helps you understand the pacing to get through all the material to prepare yourself to be ready for that 5-day live event.
That's right. And while there's easily, I would say over 100 hours worth of content at this point in the membership area, you really only need the core content, which is about 40 sessions. The core content is the only thing we expect you to go through in the syllabus. We do have some recommendations for other things you can look at. And there's virtual summits from like the last 5 or 6 years. There's Q&As going all the way back to 2015. Like there's a ton of content back there, but you only need the core content. And the way the syllabus is set up, it doesn't take more than 1.5 hours to 2 hours a week to go through that core content.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if you invest in doing profiling sessions right away, well, then you can spend as much time as you'd like to there. But I would say that if you're doing a bare minimum of time commitment, it's about 90 minutes to 2 hours a week.
Yeah. What kind of people am I be around learning with? We saw some of them earlier when we heard from some of the Profiler Training students. But corporate consultants, entrepreneurs, coaches, animators, Bitcoin investors, CEOs, psychotherapists. I mean, I'm not making this up. These are actual
these are students,
career people that came. We have a lot of therapists that have been coming lately.
Yep.
And professional like helpers, right? Therapists, coaches, people that work with other people.
Mhm.
Ivy League professors. We've had a fashion model come through. Journalists, university professors, comedians, photographers, writers. I don't even know if writers on here. Jungian analysts, musicians, nonprofit director. I mean, you name it, career. We've had somebody come into Profiler Training, and often these people are taking this back into their career. We have a crisis negotiator who came in and learned Profiler Training, learned profiling in order to literally talk people off the ledge
That's
who
right.
are maybe going to harm themselves and work with crisis situations, understand how to quickly pattern them and understand maybe how their cognition is they're personally talking with them. So there's all sorts of applications that students find for this, and it's developing and moving even into more areas every year. Why is now the best time to join? Well, I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing a very special recording. I mean, I think anytime's a good time to join. Now's a good time to join because you're interested, you're here. You've already taken this step. I think it's a great experience. But we'll also be doing some of the re-recording of the material this year, which is just a one-time thing. It's not going to happen. And I would also say that if you put a deposit down tonight, just to kind of show interest, we want to gift you with a 90-minute session with Antonia to do a profiling or coaching session with you, whatever is our gift to you for taking action and just kind of indicating interest tonight. If you're accepting the program, that's on the table, and we'd love to gift you as well.
So that is if you put your deposit in today, right?
Yeah.
Like tonight. And if you get accepted into the program, it's a 90-minute session with me. And I actually don't really do profiling sessions anymore unless it's
No.
a coaching client.
We had to take her off of them because it was getting too much, but we do high-level coaching people, which is very expensive, but those people can sometimes get them. We do corporate clients where Antonia can do profiling, and then obviously you've seen her on the main stage do it. But it's very rare that happens. We thought that would be a nice gift, something that you can't really get anywhere else.
Yeah.
If you wanted to take action tonight,
Yeah.
I think it's a
So
great time.
committing tonight means that you get access to 90 minutes with me.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it's a good time to join.
And when she says potential, we go through an application process just to make sure the community is curated. I'm assuming everyone here is a really cool person and there's no
Yeah.
red flags or anything crazy like that. But we just want people to apply and say questions like, what are your personal growth goals? What are some of the things you've overcome or some of your achievements in life? Where are you at in your life? How do you think you're going to fit in this community well? Those kinds of questions, just general things, just to make sure as a safety check, to make sure that this is a great fit for both of us, the community and you. That's the application process. Where and when is the live event? We are going to do it in Orlando, Florida. It's a great international airport for people in Europe. Europeans love to come there, especially in November. People from overseas. So it's a great place for people to come. It's sunny. It's usually warm. It's near Disney World. So often people will bring their families down. And it can be an exciting place to be with your family or other people. And then it's tons of things to do before, after the event. And so a lot of the alumni love coming there because it's a great experience for them before or after to do all the activities in the area as well. Beach, Disney and things like that.
I
Or
will,
Universal or whatever.
I will say, even though it's not officially on here, I would also save the date for Sunday.
Yes. We will probably do an activity called Encounter with Self on Sunday, which is a deep personal introspective personal growth experience.
Yeah.
It's very it's personal to you. We do it as a group, but it's not a lot of interaction. It's more reflection. There's a few sharing moments, but it's really a deep look into your own self. We talk about the Jungian concepts of persona, ego, shadow, and whole self. And we walk you through a question set and meditations to access some of that and understand where you're coming from. And so a lot of students, and it's something you can go through over and over again.
Yeah.
And so we're planning that on the 19th, usually lasts till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Some people have to fly out earlier than that, but if you can be there on that Sunday, it's a bonus day. It's not part of the official event. We're going to invite you to come over and be part of that if you're already there anyway. So that's awesome. What's the tuition? How does this work? The tuition, full tuition, $29.97. If you do up front though, you want to just go ahead and just take care of it all together. We offer a 15% discount, but we also have some tuition plans to fit budgets because we understand, there's inflation, there's all sorts of crazy stuff in the world.
It's a rough time.
And we want to make sure that we offer this to make sure it's accessible to people. So we have 6 months, and we've also this year added a 10-month option for anyone that would love to split that up into payments. And so you can figure that out on the tuition side. And again, what's great about taking action for this, you don't have to pay tuition tonight or anything. It's all you'd have to do is fill out the application and put a deposit down to indicate interest. You can always change your mind if you need to, or talk to anybody you need to, like a spouse or partner or whoever, boss for time off, etc. But if you put a deposit down, that will put it over to when you accept the program to have that 90-minute session with Antonia. And it just kind of shows us the interest of people and what the indication is. If you're taking action, like, okay, we've got this group assembling, it helps us know what your interest level is. So you don't have to pay the full tuition tonight, but you do need to put a deposit down an application. And I would encourage you to do that because I think it's a really great benefit.
The deposit is nominal. It's not a lot.
It's like $50 or $25.
Yeah, it's 25
It's
or 50.
refundable if you decide not to.
It's refundable if you end up not joining the program, and we apply it to your tuition if you do.
Yeah.
So it's like putting a little bit down just so that we know that you're really truly interested, because we get a lot of applications.
Yeah. So right now, if you're watching this live, it is the 13th of June, 2023. If you're watching this back, obviously it's not possibly that day. Enrollment is now open, and you can enroll and apply, or applications. We're taking applications now for the program. We're going to close enrollment a week and a day from now. The 21st of June, enrollment is going to close. We'll stop taking applications. And then Antonia and myself, our team, goes through the applications. We look at them. We accept students on the 22nd. And then the orientation for the new class is on the 23rd, Friday the 23rd. Now, we're going to record everything. If you ever have to miss a Q&A, a orientation, I want you to be there personally, in person if you can on Zoom, because it's going to be really key to meet the other students. We want to meet you in person and talk with you and get you orientated to the process. But that new class orientation is on the 23rd, kicking off. And then if you're like, go through the orientation, like, I don't know if this is for me, we still have one last day to withdraw on the 24th, just in case you get the orientation and you just find out all the details and you're like, actually, I don't need to do this right now. We have that provision as well for the withdrawal on that day. Okay, so if you'd like to apply, and we're going to take questions also, profilertraining.com/apply. If you got questions, info@personalityhacker.com, but profilertraining.com/apply. You put a deposit down in your application, accepted. If you do that tonight, we're going to gift you with a 90-minute session with Antonia, which I think is a really great benefit. Who's got questions? Who has things that they want to ask? Anyone have anything else that I know we usually address the questions fairly well, most of the general ones, but feel free to type in the chat if you've got a question, or in
you
the
can
Q&A.
Yeah, you can put it in the Q&A box as well. Those will get priority because they're very easy to organize the question.
Yeah,
but you can also ask a question in the chat.
Yeah, and typically, by the way, I'll just mention this as you're formulating your questions, if you have any. We don't do this webinar format where we can't see you on an actual like Q&A call,
Right.
Or on the orientation. Everybody, much like the panel we talked to earlier of profile training students, we'll have everybody's faces up like a Zoom meeting. It's just because we have so many people that come to these often that we just can't do the meeting. It would just overrun it. So we have to do the webinar to accommodate as many people that register and end up coming to these. So it'll be a little bit more interactive than this. We'll actually be able to talk to you. Right now you have to type your question in, but you'll be able to actually ask your questions and we can actually dialogue just like we were with our panel a little bit earlier.
All right. So it's okay if people don't have questions. That's totally fine. But if you do, then is the time.
Well, that's good because you're taking action to apply.
Yeah.
Your questions have been answered. You're going over to profilertraining.com/apply right this moment. You're putting your application in. And I would just say, I would say this is in kind of wrap up. I would basically just say this in wrapping up that, sorry, I got distracted when you were moving around. I forgot my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, if you're here tonight with us, or if you're watching this back as a recording, you've taken the time to watch this presentation. You've taken the time to lean in and look at the ideas around deep reading people. Please take those ideas. Please go use them in the world,
Yes.
regardless of any programs or anything with Personality Hacker. Please go impact people's lives with this.
Yes.
I think that's our encouragement to you, our challenge, our wish for you is that you will take some of these ideas that we talk about and actually go and help other people, help yourself understand and communicate. I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And if you're here and you've been here this far along, you have an opportunity to join something that I think will very much impact your life. I think it will change who you are, how you show up, the way you show up. I think it will impact your career. I think it will impact your relationships. I think it will impact your personal life, your relationship to yourself. Antonia and I deliver, we lean forward. Our team delivers and leans forward. We're very passionate about what we do. We love the community. We love people that are in this ecosystem, and we would love for you to be a part of it. I think this would be something that it'd be great to get to know you better. It'd be great to get to know who you are and work with you and have you part of this community. And who knows? I mean, maybe someday, 3-5 years from now, you're in Klaus's position. Maybe you're on the team. I have no promises, but I didn't expect Klaus to be on the team when he joined as a student. It just ended up that way as he kept applying himself and he applied for the position and it worked out. Maybe you'll become a profiler. Maybe it'll be something that you hang a shingle out and you have your own website. We have people that have graduated from the program and they are doing professional profiling and they're working with people one-on-one.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll weave it into your actual career and you'll take it back into your professional life. Maybe you'll use it with your family to create understanding, or something else that I haven't even thought of in all of that.
Yeah.
But I'd encourage you to be part of this program. And now I think is a time. It's a time for you to take action. It's a time for you to lean forward again. It's an investment. And I think that's part of it. The investment is a serious investment. It's something that we take very serious and we can deliver with that investment, which is awesome. So I really am positive about this and I really can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I love all the profile training students.
Oh, we did
Okay.
get some questions. Great.
Yeah, we did get some questions. Somebody said profiling sounds like online dating. I think it's vastly superior to online dating personally, but that's just my personal opinion. Is it common to be rejected from the program just to be emotionally prepared? It is very uncommon.
No, it's not common.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very uncommon to be rejected from the program. It's basically it's like if the person like very clearly is not a good fit, and oftentimes most people self-select out.
Yeah.
Are there regular
Well,
opportunities to have Zoom call? Yeah.
I would just say like the things we're looking for sometimes, just so you understand, like what's something in your personal growth life you're proud of? It's like understanding people better. It's like this real short answer. It's like, what do you do with that answer? So I'm just giving you an idea. Like if you
Yeah.
give us more content, like,
Yeah.
we're just looking for you to express like what's your intention and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that's like, I don't know if this person maybe is ready. They're giving us 1-word answers on their application.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing we're sorting for.
Well, and the number one thing is that you didn't put a deposit down. That's the only time we're just like, the deposit is how we know you're serious about the program.
Yeah, that too.
Are there regular opportunities to have Zoom calls and interact with other students? Yes. So every month we do 2 Q&A calls. Every 3 months we do a virtual summit. And then of course, every 6 months is the live event. And it is very common for students to organize in a lot of different social media. There's like a Discord group and a Telegram group and all that stuff. And so having conversations with other people is very common. Usually it really kicks up after the live event. Once you meet everybody, like your friends for life and, your BFFs and all that stuff. So, but yeah, we provide at least minimum 1 per month, a call for you to connect with other students.
How do
All
you
right.
feel about students making their own small businesses on the side with this information? Well, it depends. If you set up your own profiler training program, you were going to create a business around that and teach this specific methodology
Right.
and get students into a community and kind of become our competition. I don't
Right.
want to see it in terms of competition, but if you kind of like made it so it's like, wait, we're having to compete with you, then that
Yeah.
would be kind of maybe an issue because that's what we do here. And so it's like, yeah, we don't really want you setting up across the street as a rival, but we do intend for you to use this in a way. The methodology, we hope you will take this and use it in a personal business, a coaching business or therapy business. It's I think that's the intent for it.
There's quite a few influencers that have actually come through profiler training. Denzel Mensa, if you know his channel, he's come through profiler training.
Yeah.
Joyce Meng has been a profiler training student.
Yeah.
Just came to the last live event.
Yeah.
So we kind of expect, even influencers, we sort of expect Matt Sherman, who has an INFP channel, has come through profiler training.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon for people to use this as like, I mean, I think we launched quite a few influencers and lots and lots of people use it in their coaching. And we encourage that. We want that. We want it to be something that's helpful.
We have some guidelines of how to use it. You know, what you can't like claim you're part of our company or anything if you're not. Those kinds of like, there's like parameters of this. And so we have some guidelines that we ask people to follow. Or, you know, be honoring of our intellectual property and the way we talk about certain things. And please don't blast out profiler training everywhere. But the intent is that you could weave this into some business practice for yourself.
Yeah. Melissa, I saw your question. Why don't you shoot us an email? And I think we can probably work something out.
Yeah.
So it's good to see you, by the way.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. All right. And when will this recording be accessible? I'm going to try to edit this right after I'm done here. I will probably upload it. I'll be sending an email out to everyone in the morning. So you probably won't get an email about it tonight because I have to render and upload it overnight. And then the email will go out in the morning to everyone to have the access to the replay.
Yep. So right away.
Yeah.
So questions in the chat. Do we have to pay any initial amount and will be rent funded if we decide to withdraw?
Yeah.
Yes. Once you're so once you put your deposit down, once you're accepted, part of putting the deposit down is if you are accepted, then whatever your tuition you've chosen, right, payment plan, or if you want to get the 15% off, we start that process. We do the orientation and then we allow people to withdraw the next day because we want to make sure that they have all of the information they need. And when that happens, it very rarely happens.
I
think
like
it's
2 people
twice ever.
One was a death in the family.
Yeah.
And something happened with their career, they had to do something, their job.
Yeah,
it's like an emergency situations.
Yeah, that's very, very, very rare when it happens. But if that were to happen, if it was like a crisis in the situation, in the family or whatever, then you would, of course, be refunded your tuition.
Yeah.
Valid says, having had sessions with Antonia, I'd say the 90-minute session alone is worth the tuition of the 5-day seminar, but that's just my opinion as an ENTJ. Thank you, Valid. And I totally look forward to doing a coaching session with you soon. Yeah. Let's see. Thanks for the info.
Cool.
So you offer referral incentives, refer a friend.
We do have some referral things right now. We're redeveloping the system. So we'll be probably in the fall giving some information about that. But right now we don't have anything particularly. If you had anything particularly in mind, I don't have your name up here. It came up anonymously, but you can always email in any questions more specifically if there was something you had in mind. We're usually we're open and creative, not always, because we're trying to create programs and create structure and things, but often if somebody has an idea, I'm like, let's try that sometimes. So depends on the idea, but if you had an idea on something like that, feel free to email in.
Yeah.
And again, if you have any questions, info@personalityhacker.com. Our team, Jess and Ines and Laura, often answer emails, while they're in Europe, so they'll probably be answering them really late my time. But they answer emails back and can give you any answers you need. If there's something that needs to be escalated to us, we can answer that as well. But if you've got questions, please feel free to email those in.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah.
So profiletraining.com/apply. I want to see you in the program. And Tony wants to see you in the program. And just if you put the deposit down tonight and indicate interest, and then you decide to go through the whole process and you end up in the program, that 90-minute session's on the table, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So again, I want to encourage that. All right. Anything else you need to say before we go?
Yeah,
Thank you very much for being here, by the way.
Yes.
Appreciate your time, attention, leaning forward, being engaged with this, all the questions, all the people that were part of this tonight. I'm really excited about this new class starting up.
Me too.
And I have a good vibe about it.
I have a good feeling about it.
And I think that
and we also know that we have at least half a dozen people who've already signed up for profiler training.
Yeah, they've already put their deposits and applications in. So
feel good.
We're excited about that it's going to start to fill up this next class. See you in November in Orlando. All right. Thank you very much. And we will talk to you on the next live event, live experience. I can't wait for you to be part of the program. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye.
Talk soon.